Okay, well, let's get started. I appreciate everyone coming, well, virtually coming to see me speak, and hopefully you can gain some knowledge about emotions and how to help children regulate those emotions. So my presentation is called Friend or Foe, Teaching Kids to Effectively Regulate Emotions. And then let's see, hopefully this works. Okay, good. So just a little bit about me, who I am and my background. I used to be a special ed teacher and a social worker. I worked with the severe special ed group, and I absolutely loved it, but I learned a lot about emotions and kind of some gaps in the literature as well as just the research and different things. So I studied a lot of that to try to figure out some answers so that I could teach emotions effectively to my students and help those parents that I was working with. I have three children. They're super cute. I had to unfortunately get them out of the house so that they wouldn't bother us, but they are 7, 5, and 2. And then my husband's a pharmacist, and I'm currently a stay-at-home mom, author, and speaker. So some objectives for today. First, we want to define what emotions are, where they come from, and how they're helpful. Once we are able to do that, then we can identify important skills needed to regulate emotions and how to teach those skills to children. And then lastly, recognize the steps for kids to be able to regulate emotions and how you can help in that process. So, what are emotions? They're natural. They're just instinctive, a natural instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. Basically, they're feelings we have every single day, and we can't necessarily control if we have emotions or not. They just come based on circumstances, our mood, and our relationships with others. So where do they come from? The basic version is our brain, but a little bit more in depth. It comes from the limbic system in the brain. That is in charge of our emotional and behavioral responses. So what the brain does is it takes a look at our current surroundings, it remembers the past experiences, and then it alerts our body how to feel. So things like your pulse might start racing, you might have your palms sweating, your hands could be shaking, your eyes get really big. All of the things that you feel with emotions in your body, those come from your brain. And just to continue where emotions come from, the prefrontal cortex is also involved with emotional regulation. And what it does is it acts as a manager to help you regulate and weigh your reactions before you do them. So it kind of slows things down so that you can make a choice instead of just reacting. So for example, if you're walking, it's winter, it's icy, you're walking on the ice and you slip and you fall, and let's say you break your wrist. The next time it's winter, there's ice on the ground, and you're walking on the ice, you're going to feel some different emotions. You might be scared. You might be more cautious. You might feel all of these different things because of what happened in the past. And that's what our brain does to help us learn. We look at the past, we look at the current situation, and then it helps us decide what to do and how to feel. So what causes emotions? There's quite a few. These were just some that I put, but there's more than this. But situations, people, animals, objects, TV shows, movies, work, family, school, and pretty much anything. Pretty much anything around you can cause you to have these emotions. So how are these emotions helpful? This is one that I really struggled to find answers to when I was a teacher. A lot of the kids, I would say, it's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to hurt people. And they'd ask, well, why is it okay to be mad? And I didn't have an answer. So I looked for books, I looked for lessons, I looked for curriculum, different things. And there wasn't really a whole lot out there that told kids why it was okay to be mad or sad or scared or even happy. I mean, they don't necessarily ask as much with happy, but why? So that is where I started to do some more research and eventually wrote some books about it. But the reason emotions are helpful is they incite change. They help with motivation. They're one of the biggest motivators there is. They help us make decisions. They help us with safety, survival, sociality. So making friends is essential to have emotions. Behavior, connection, problem solving, resilience, and then academics and confidence. So all of those are things that emotions are helpful for us in our life. And what I tell people is often we have these uncomfortable emotions and we don't necessarily view them as helpful. And so what I ask parents or teachers is, well, how has history changed? Was history changed by happy people, or was it changed by people that were mad, scared, sad, worried? So we've got to remember that there are things that are beneficial from each and every emotion. And those things I would love to help you learn today, but those are the kind of the main things. An example of this where a lady had what was called a calcified amygdala. So there was a part in her brain that was hardened and she literally could not feel fear. Now, everyone around her thought, oh, that's so cool. You probably go skydiving and you do all these crazy things. And she didn't realize how unsafe it was to not be able to feel fear. And for example, one time she was held up at gunpoint. She did not know that that was a scary situation and that she should be afraid. So she kind of pushed back and kind of kept walking and she didn't think to do what the robber or the person with the gun asked her to do. And so she got shot. Thankfully, she survived. But she learned a big lesson that fear is actually very important for safety and survival. And she didn't know that before. And she literally couldn't feel fear. And so just remembering that each and every emotion is beneficial and helpful in its own way is one of my biggest points that I want to get across. So what skills are needed to be able to regulate? So a lot of times we talk about regulating, but do we know the skills needed in order to be able to regulate? And do kids have those skills? And how do we teach those skills to children? So I kind of went backwards. I had the process of regulating, then the skills needed for that, and then how to teach kids those skills. So the top 5 skills that I found were executive functioning, language development, self-awareness, deep breathing, and pauses. So those were the top 5 skills needed to be able to effectively regulate your emotions. Self-regulation is not necessarily an inherent skill. It's something that we need to teach children. And the research shows that at about age 2, children can start kind of recognizing emotions, what they are, and kind of sometimes naming them. But it's not until about age 3 that they can really start the very simple processes of regulating those emotions. So starting young is important. And I just kept asking myself, who's in charge of teaching it if it's not inherent? And I keep getting the answer that we are. We are, as teachers, as parents, as workers, we're in charge of teaching these kids. So as far as executive functioning skills, what are they? They're cognitive flexibility, so helping your brain be flexible, problem solving, delayed gratification, and accountability. These skills are so helpful when we're trying to solve a problem if we're trying to regulate emotions. So how do we teach kids those skills? There are so many things that we can do. Movement, games, puzzles, modeling, allowing for failure and mistakes, open-ended questions, exploring multiple solutions for one problem, praising efforts, encouraging creativity, having routines, planners, calendars so that they can see what's going on, breaking things into smaller tasks, setting time limits, reading books, cooking, using visuals, setting goals, getting outside, and taking breaks. And I'm sure a lot of you are doing a lot of this already with the kids, and which is great. You probably didn't know that you were helping them learn the skills to be able to regulate their emotions. And some things that are even more specific that we could do for executive functioning skills are things like Uno. That's a great way to help kids learn executive functioning skills. Go fish, memory games, checkers, building with blocks, making forts, which I have substituted in a daycare for about 6 years now, and making forts is one of their favorite things to do. But you can see how it requires all of these skills that I talked about: the cognitive flexibility, the problem solving, delayed gratification, accountability. Making a fort requires all of those skills, and so they're learning. And then making and doing obstacle courses. So those are the very specific things that are really great to help with executive functioning skills. Now, the next one is language development. What exactly is it? When kids can communicate, whether that's verbally or non-verbally, any sort of behavior is going to communicate something, they can better regulate. So how do we teach kids these skills? Books, again, modeling. You'll see a lot of these skills repeat. Books and modeling, talking with the kid, having conversations, repetition, songs, and open-ended questions. And that one gets kind of tricky if the kid doesn't necessarily want to talk or if we're in a hurry. But instead of just saying, do you want this? And that's a yes or no question. We can ask, well, how do you want this? Or what was your day like? Instead of just saying, did you have a good day? So trying to get them to expand more really helps with that language development. Some very specific things that we can do are read books to the kids, narrate your actions. This one is a little bit awkward, but it's recommended to help kids develop their language. So I did this with my oldest and my middle a lot better than my youngest, but I would say, okay, we're going to go up the stairs now and we're going to get dressed. Oh, look, here's your shirt, here's your pants. And so it feels a little awkward and over the top, but that's really how kids learn to speak. And so narrating your action, telling stories is a great way to help kids develop language, using puppets or stuffed animals, and then singing songs. The third step is being self-aware. So self-awareness, what is it? It's understanding emotions mentally and physically, being curious and having confidence. And curiosity is a great thing that I've learned as far as emotions. If we can be curious about our emotions, it helps us with some of these other steps. Instead of fighting the emotion, we're now wondering and we're curious why it's there, and it takes that fight away. So how do we teach it? We do movement breaks, meditation, modeling, giving kids choices and responsibilities, helping them problem solve. A lot of times kids can think of one answer and that's the answer. And if it doesn't work, then they give up. So helping them realize there's multiple solutions to each problem that arises and to kind of stick with it. Teaching reflection, empathy, talking about their strengths and their weaknesses, developing their personality, looking at the big picture. Sometimes kids get really focused on what's right in front of them. So helping them expand that and seeing the bigger picture, and then having check-ins. Just with those, again, those open-ended questions, how are you doing today? What was your favorite part of today? What can we do to help you? Or, anything like that. And very specific things to do are connect your feelings to your actions. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I noticed when I was teaching that a lot of kids would lump their feelings and their actions together. So they'd say, well, being mad is bad because so-and-so got hurt. And I'd say, hold up, who got hurt and how did they get hurt? And then I'd ask, does mad have a body? And they'd say, no, no, no. And I say, So we're choosing our actions. And are we choosing good actions or are we choosing bad actions? The emotion itself is healthy, but our actions can be good or bad. And so trying to help them separate those feelings, they're all healthy, from their actions. And are we choosing good or bad actions? Helping kids practice mindfulness. So even just taking a few seconds to just think and reflect, and then helping kids assess their strengths and weaknesses. So you can go over it with them, but hopefully they start to learn to be able to do it themselves. So how am I strong and what could I work on? The next thing that I saw a lot in the research was deep breathing. And I don't mean just taking breaths. It's like the deep guttural, it's in your diaphragm breathing. And they saw that this would help your brain. So it would help shift the emotion from the back of your head to the front of your head, where we are able to make decisions. Whereas the back is kind of impulse, the front is impulse control. And so by doing that deep breathing and the pauses that we'll learn about next, we're able to shift that so that instead of just reacting, we're getting to choose. We're getting to choose our actions. So the diaphragm breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, acts as the regulator. The vagus nerve is part of the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes relaxation and stress reduction. So it's going to immediately relax them, reduce their stress, calm a little bit. So maybe if the emotion is here, we're doing the breathing and it's bringing it down to here so that we can now figure out how to manage it. So how do we teach it? I teach it by telling the kids to breathe in through their nose while pushing their belly out as far as they possibly can and filling it with air like a big balloon. Then I have them pause for 1, 2, and then they breathe out through their mouth and make a noise as they push all the air out of their belly, and imagine their belly almost touching their back because they've sucked it in so much and pushed all that air out. And so it would look like this. And they do that a few times. And I don't know about you, but when I do that, my shoulders instantly relax, my brain settles down, my body starts to relax a little bit. As far as pauses, this was another thing that just was so important that kids don't often do because they're just ready to go. And so helping kids learn to pause. Prefrontal cortex deals with impulse control, and it's similar to a brake for decision making. And so again, we start to feel the emotions in the back, in the limbic system, and that is where the impulses are. And so if we can breathe, we can pause, we can do these things, it's going to shift it to the prefrontal cortex where we have impulse control. And we push the brakes, make our decisions. How do we teach it? We teach kids to stop and wait before acting. So they're going to stop, they're going to think, and then they're going to choose an action. So by using these skills, when we feel big emotions, we are able to reset our brain and body to be able to act instead of just react. We are able to shift from the limbic system of the brain to the prefrontal cortex where we can start regulating. And that's crucial, especially for managing emotions and not having extreme behaviors. Kids will be able to feel their feelings instead of squishing them or pushing them away. And by feeling them first and then trying to manage, they're truly regulating. So again, a lot of kids, they view emotion as this, I would say almost a problem that they're trying to like get rid of and push away. And I want them to view the emotion as something there to help them solve the problem. So we're trying to take away that fight. We don't necessarily want the kids to be fighting their emotions, even the uncomfortable ones. We want them embracing them. So the top skills, as you probably noticed, there's a lot of skills that repeat. So I just wanted to go over those real quick. Modeling was the #1 thing in all the research that repeated in every single skill. The modeling is one of the most crucial ways for kids to learn. When they see it, they hear it, they can copy it. So as far as modeling, it gives a foundation and example they can copy and follow, which then leads to more self-awareness and self-confidence, which is wonderful. And what that looks like is kind of that narrative. You're saying, okay, I am feeling really angry right now. And then you kind of talk them through. I'm going to take a deep breath and then I'm going to stop and think before I choose an action. Open-ended questions was the number 2 that I saw as far as sub skills. And what that does is help kids develop resilience, confidence, a growth mindset, improves expression, and allows them to share so their self-esteem increases. So we want to improve all of these things: confidence, self-esteem, self-awareness. The third one that I saw the most was movement and play. And I've studied a little bit about movement and play in kids, but I was very surprised of how important movement and play are and how much they help kids with regulating emotions. So it just improves all areas of life. And the main thing it does is help them learn confidence. Last 2 sub skills that repeat were books. And what those do is they stimulate the imagination, which then increases understanding, improves self-esteem, increases empathy, increases language, and self-expression. So with a book, they can go anywhere, they can be anything, they're able to use their imagination and do all of those things that maybe they can't do in real life or that aren't possible yet in real life. And then the last one was allowing for mistakes. And what that does is build self-esteem, allows for normalness, it helps grow the brain, prepares them for life, and helps them to reflect and become self-aware. I think a lot of times naturally we want to jump in when a kid's making a mistake and kind of fix it for them, but it's actually very beneficial for them to make that mistake and then learn from it. And so sometimes we have to kind of stop ourselves because it is natural. I want to do that all the time with my kids, like, oh, don't make that mistake. I'll tell you the better way. But that is part of kids' growth. So another thing that was in a lot of the research was using the 5 senses to help reset the brain. So like the breathing and the pausing. One thing that would help with kids that are struggling with a very extreme emotion is touch. Like hugs if they're comfortable and if it's allowed, hugs or squeezes. Physical activity, could they stomp their feet or run around real quick? Excuse me, cold things. So holding an ice cube has been shown to do something to the brain that helps to reset it. Squeezing, whether they're squeezing their hands or squeezing a stuffed animal or something like that. Tapping their cheeks was another one. Using your index finger. That is a great one. And then another thing was smell. So citrus, lavender, frankincense, sage, sandalwood, coffee, and peppermint were the main smells that help to kind of reset the brain. Taste, there's sour, citrus, cold, and peppermint. And I think what that does is it shocks the brain a little bit. And so you're able to pause and then your emotion shifts and you're able to now act. And I gave this presentation a little while ago, and a lady raised her hand when I talked about taste, and she said that she was on a plane ride with her daughter, and there was a lot of turbulence. It was getting really bumpy, really rocky, and her daughter started to kind of freak out. She was a teenager, and she was just getting very, very nervous. And the lady behind her gave her a sour candy and said, here, suck on this. And the mom was kind of like, oh, I don't know, this is a stranger. But anyway, she opened the candy, gave it to her daughter. Her daughter started sucking on it. And she was amazed at how her daughter's shoulders dropped and her body stopped being so tense. And she was able to kind of start calming down, start regulating those emotions. And it's almost like this just slight distraction so that we can flip the switch. So anyway, these things work and they are great. As far as sight, nature, familiar things for the kids. So maybe their family or things like that, things that they like to see. So maybe you can show them a picture of a train or something like that. waterfalls, rivers, fire, and mirror. I read once that there's three things that humans can never stop looking at or watching, and it's running water, fire, and themselves. And I thought that was really interesting, but it's true that it's kind of a calming effect. And then the last one is sound. So calming music, any liked music that they have, tapping or rhythmic sounds like banging on a drum or things like that can help reset the brain. So don't forget, using the five senses can really help as well. Now, as far as looking at all the research and looking at all the methods used to regulate, I found that not a lot of them had the evaluation step, which I found to be very important. If we're not evaluating, how do we know if what we're doing is working? And so I put together some steps in order to be able to regulate that are more for kids. They work for adults as well, but they're more for kids. A lot of the steps that you'll see in the research are for adults, which is totally fine, but a lot of us work with kids. So I call it the dances method. And what that stands for is discern, aware, name, converse, evaluate, and then select. So as far as discern, this is exactly what I say to the child. And I would just do this dialogue. Are you feeling an emotion? How strong is the emotion? Is it small, medium, or big? Can you take a breath real quick? Imagine pushing your belly out as far as you can, then imagine pulling it back as far as you can. Ready? Breathe in, 1, 2, breathe out, 1, 2, so you're gonna go over this exactly with the kids. If they're nonverbal, they can point, you can use visuals, you can help them if they aren't speaking, like, are you feeling emotion? It looks like you're feeling an emotion, is that right? Yes or no? So there's ways you can do this with the verbal and the nonverbal. And then I ask the kid, where in your body do you feel it? What color is it? And what shape is it? We're helping them imagine this emotion somewhere in their body, or if they don't feel it in their body, that's fine. But I want them to imagine it so later they can talk to it. Then you have to be aware. Do you know why you feel this way? What happened before? What changed? So if the kid doesn't know why they feel this way, again, you can kind of help them. Okay, let's see, what was happening before? I noticed you were playing with trains with Johnny. What changed? And if they don't know, oh, you know what? I think Johnny took one of the trains that you were playing with. Is that why you're upset? So helping them know why they're upset is a big thing. Then they're going to name that emotion. So let's give your emotion a name. What do you want to name your emotion? And you can name it anything you want. You don't have to name it mad or sad or whatever. You can name it Bob or Billy or Johnny. I mean, you can name it whatever you want. I want you to tell yourself, I am, and if they're mad or sad or whatever, so I am mad and it's okay. And what they've seen in the research is that if you name and accept your emotion, then it's like taking an internal breath, and it helps relax your body, relax your shoulders, relax your mind a little bit. So I have them tell themselves, I am mad, it's okay. And you'll notice, at least for me, I've noticed like a physical difference in their countenance, in their body language. Now we're going to, oh, sorry, go backwards. Now that you've named it, let's pretend that your emotion is our friend. So if they name it mad, great. If they name it Jenny, so let's pretend Jenny is our friend. In a recent study of 7,000 people, on average, people could only name 3 emotions as they were feeling them. Of the 87 core emotions available to us, there was only happiness, sadness, and anger. And I thought that was really, really interesting. That comes from Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. That statistic is where I found it. And there are 87 emotions, but in the moment, a lot of times we can only name 3, which I I just think that's fascinating. And so I want to encourage you to learn more names of emotions so that you can help the kids learn those names. And there's core emotions. There's about 8 well, depending on which person you follow. There are from 5 to 8 core emotions, and those are kind of the big ones that kids should be learning. But if we can help them recognize and learn those emotions, it's a lot easier to start regulating. So as far as once we've labeled it as our friend, we've given it a name, we know where it comes from, we know we're even feeling an emotion, we're going to start conversing. And this is the part that makes people a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. But what I've found is that using the kids' imagination, using the kids' ability to their ability to be imaginative is really helpful. Let's use it to our advantage. So I ask the child to ask ask the child, how do you feel toward your emotion friend? I want to know. Are they scared of it? Are they wanting to get rid of it? Are they okay with it being there? What are they feeling? Your new emotion friend came to help you. I want you to focus on the part of the body where you feel the emotion. Think of the name, shape, and color. So I want them to start imagining their emotion in their body, and they're going to talk to it. Thank your friend for coming to help you. Tell it you will listen to it, but that you are going to be in charge. And an analogy that I give kids, I stole this from my brother, but we say, think of a bus. And all the emotions are on the bus. They're all allowed to ride the bus. They're all allowed to be wherever on the bus, but they're never allowed to drive the bus. Because who's the driver? We are. We are allowed to drive the bus, and we are the only ones allowed to drive that bus. Now, I don't want to push emotions off the bus and get rid of them. I want them to be on the bus and be okay with being on the bus, but sometimes they're in the front, sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes they're in the back, sometimes they're right up in your face trying to get you to do something. But ultimately, we are in charge and we are driving the bus. And so helping kids recognize that and realize that they are in charge, no matter how strong the emotion is, they are the boss. And they can thank that emotion for coming. A lot of times our emotions want to be heard. They have a message they want to share, and that you're going to listen to it. It sometimes takes that edge off. And then letting this emotion know that you are going to be in charge. Asking them if their emotion wants to tell them anything. So does your emotion want to tell you anything? If not, that's fine. Does your emotion want to help you? How can it help you? We're going to be looking into that. And then, does your emotion need a hug? This is another one it seems a little silly, but the emotion needs to be heard. It needs to be felt. It needs to be seen. And then often, once it goes away. So if they can imagine giving that emotion a hug, if it needs one, that's great. Sometimes, oh, I just said that, sorry. Sometimes they want to be seen and heard, and then they'll go on their way. They're just like waves. So they're going to come, they're going to get strong. We can kind of wait it out and it'll go back down. Now, with the emotion, if it is close, let's say it's up kind of in their face, screaming at them, like I'm really, really, really mad. And you say, emotion, mad, I thank you for coming. I'm going to listen to you, but I am in charge. And the emotion is kind of, still there. It's still tapping. Then you can have the student or the child ask the emotion to take a step back. Okay, can you go back to your seat on the bus, or can you take a step back away from me so I have a little bit of personal space? And if the emotion won't, or they can't imagine the emotion taking a step back, then the child can physically take a step back. And that does wonders for the child to be able to just, wait a second, I'm in charge. I'm in charge. I'll take a step back. You stay over there and let's talk. So here's some examples of my daughter. My daughter likes to draw her emotions so she can talk to them. So the top left is her when she had 3 different emotions, and you'll see them on the bottom right, but it was mad, well, if I remember, mad, happy, and worried, I think it was, or sad. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But she felt all three. And so she wanted to draw all three emotions in one picture. And then she wanted to talk to that picture. And that helped her to visualize the emotion and be able to say, you know what? I'm going to be in charge. I will listen to you. Thank you for coming. What's your message? The one in the middle is when she was really, really sad and she was trying to have sad take a step back, and sad wasn't listening. So she physically took a step back. Then she also drew this picture where I said, well, who's driving the bus? And she said, we both are. And I said, uh-oh, that's scary when two people are driving one car. That can be really dangerous. So let's talk to Sad again and see if we can get Sad to just sit in the front seat and have a conversation with us. After we're conversing with that emotion, we're trying to get it to take a step back. If it's, if it's in your face, if it's not, we're just talking to it. We're going to evaluate. And this is the step that a lot of things did not include. If you do not feel in charge, ask your emotion to let you be in charge. Imagine that emotion with its shape and color. Focus on the body part and imagine that shape either floating out of your body, taking a step back, whatever they want to imagine for that emotion to give them some space. And then again, if they won't do that, you can. You can take a step back. Do you want to say anything to your emotion friend? So sometimes the kids want to talk and tell that emotion something, and that's totally fine. And then asking them, how do they feel now? Do they still feel really upset? Has the emotion passed? Do they feel like they need to do anything? And that is where our last step is going to come in as far as coping mechanisms. So I haven't forgotten about those. By reflecting on our own experiences and evaluating our own experiences and identifying emotional triggers, this helps improve self-regulation, helps you improve self-regulation, understand your impact on others to enhance empathy, and consequently build better relationships and communication skills. It is not a coincidence that reflection is so important for emotional regulation. It's not a coincidence at all. We need to be reflecting, pausing. That distraction part is so key. And that's going to help with relationships, with behavior, with communication. It's going to help with all aspects of these children's lives. So the last step, like I said, I have not forgotten about coping mechanisms, but I want to try everything we can before we go just to acting. And the last step is selecting. So do you want to do or say anything to express that emotion? Do they still need to just do something? Is your action, so if they want to do something, I ask them, is your action unsafe? Is it destructive to yourself? Destructive? Is it harmful to yourself or others? Or is it greatly disruptive to your environment? If yes to any of those, then we need to talk to the emotion friend again and maybe choose something else. So if we're wanting to hurt someone, sorry, that one's not acceptable. We need to go back and talk to the emotion friend. If we're wanting to scream, maybe that's acceptable at home when we're outside, but at a daycare or a preschool, it might not be acceptable. So is it too disruptive? Then maybe we've got to think of a different coping mechanism. So if yes to any of those, we're going to go back and talk to our emotion friend again. If no to all of those, then we go ahead and do the action. So I want to stomp my feet. I want to scream in a pillow. I want to squeeze this stuffy. I'm trying to think of other things that kids like to do. If they, want to do those and you're okay with it and it's okay with the 4 rules, then go for it. Then again, I reflect with them. How do you feel now? I want them to be reflecting and practicing. I mean, this all has to do with mindfulness, self-reflection, being aware. All of those skills that we learned before are coming from these questions that we're asking ourselves. So as far as the dances method, that's just steps that I've come up with. I've tested it out on my children. I haven't done any testing out on multiple children, but so far it's been very successful with my children to be able to reflect, and do some of these steps so that they're building those skills that we talked about before. And then eventually they learn the steps and do them by themselves. So my 7-year-old can now do the steps by herself with just a few reminders. I don't have to go in and say the script and remind her of every single thing. She can kind of go in and do them by herself. In fact, the other day she came to me and she was clearly sad. So we started going through the steps. Are you feeling an emotion? Yes. Is it big, medium, small? Oh, it's so big. It's bigger than big. Okay. And, we talked a little bit about it. What shape is it? What color is it? And then we named it. She wanted to name it sad. And I said, okay. We did all the steps and we got to the select. And I said, do you want to do something with your sad? And she said, I just want to feel it. And I said, okay, that's wonderful. And she said, I think I just need to feel the sad and then it'll go away. And I said, okay, let's try it. So she sat on the couch. I asked if she wanted to be with me or by herself. And she just felt her sad. And it did bring tears. She cried a little bit. And then within, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, she said, the sad's gone. It went away. I said, that's wonderful. It's wonderful that you let sad come. You let sad do its thing. And then sad will go away. And it'll come back another time. And maybe you can listen to it then, but it'll also go away. And it was such a powerful moment for her. And this happened, I don't know what I just said, but it happened a little while ago. And I just was so impressed with her that she wasn't fighting that sad and pushing against it and trying to squish it and get it out of her life. She was just feeling it. And then it went away super quickly. So trying to get these kids to feel those feelings and not push them, squish them, get rid of them really helps with the regulation process to go quickly. As far as regulating emotions, kids need connection. They need help. So connection is crucial in kids forming healthy emotional regulation skills. Why? Because they need people to model it for them. They need emotions are essential for relationships. So they need that connection with people. So how can we become a safe person and create a safe space for these kids? Some things that I thought of were letting the child lead, giving them choices. So maybe not just assigning, like if you do timeout or taking breaks or whatever you call it, instead of just saying, okay, that's the corner that you have to go to, maybe letting them choose where they feel that feeling, if it's possible. Can we make a calming corner? So maybe, yes, we're choosing it for them, but they get to choose the action that they're doing in that corner. Calming pictures or pictures of emotions and healthy coping mechanisms are helpful to have. The steps of regulating are helpful to have. You can do them in a visual so that those that can't read are looking at the picture of what to do. And then having stuffies or blankets or pillows, things that they can squeeze that are soft, that are calming and comforting in that area that they choose to do the regulation process. And then as far as a safe person, I'm sure a lot of you are already doing most of this, but having a positive attitude towards emotional expression. So myself, I often find my words coming out saying, oh, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And I don't feel like that's helpful to my daughters or my son when I say, they start crying and I say, oh, don't be sad. But it's just natural and it just comes out of my mouth. So I'm trying to have a more positive attitude towards emotional expression. I can see that you're crying. Is there something you want to talk about? Do you want to talk to your emotion? Is there, you finding out the cause and doing those different things, but having that positive attitude towards them expressing healthfully their emotions is crucial. And then the connection with the child. So listening, empathizing, spending time together, having routines and boundaries. Those are critical for becoming a safe person, as well as consistency and comfort. Building connections, early experiences with caregivers, peers, and teachers lay the foundation for healthy relationships and emotional resilience, which are vital for lifelong well-being. So we're not just helping them now, we're helping them prepare for their future and for their whole entire life. You guys are so critical in the role that you play for these children. And I am so appreciative of that. And I hope that you feel appreciated. These interactions also allow children to explore diverse perspectives, try new activities, and learn to navigate conflicts healthily. So again, we're setting them up for a healthy future. In essence, nurturing strong social bonds from an early age supports a child's development into a confident, empathetic, and emotionally secure individual. And what else could we ask for? A confident, empathetic, and emotionally secure individual would be incredible for all of these kids. So as far as signs that we know kids are escalating and maybe we should intervene, a lot of these you'll recognize, but I just wanted to kind of point out some things that maybe you could start noticing, and then we won't get to the full-blown tantrum because we're able to notice, oh, something's changed. They're getting upset. Let's see if we can intervene now before it gets out of control. So tight jaw and muscles, clenched fists, a raised voice, crying, aggression, tiredness, irritability, covering their eyes or their ears, jerky movements, so maybe they're kind of twitching, restlessness and fidgeting, hyperactivity, overreacting to things that maybe they don't normally react to, difficulty concentrating, avoidance, avoiding eye contact, and really anything that's out of the ordinary for that child's behavior. Some children are naturally, like for me, for example, I'm naturally a very loud person. So for me to have a raised voice, that's kind of how I speak all the time. And I'm kind of hyperactive as well. So those wouldn't necessarily be signs that I'm escalating. But another child, maybe they're quiet and they keep to themselves, they're not hyperactive, and all of a sudden they are, we've got to notice that something's different, something's up. So anything out of the ordinary for that child's behavior is something to keep in mind, that they might be escalating and maybe we could intervene now before it becomes a full-blown tantrum. As far as phrases you can say, these are all in the handout. So the signs of escalation, the phrases you can say, what to do in the heat of the moment, and then the skills that repeat. I put all these in the handout, so make sure you download those handouts. But comfort-based phrases you can say to the kid that will help are, you sound upset. Can you tell me which emotion you feel? So instead of telling them, oh, you're sad, let's do this, you're letting them take the lead. You sound upset. Are you upset? Can you tell me which emotion you feel? It's okay to feel, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink real good. It's okay to feel blank. It's very normal and healthy. I feel blank sometimes too. So normalizing that for them and having them realize that adults feel emotions too. And sometimes we struggle to regulate those emotions. That's where that modeling comes in. All people are meant to feel blank sometimes. Do you know why you feel this way? What was happening before you felt this way? What were you doing before this happened? Should we figure this out together? So these are all things that we can say to them that are comfort-based. So if you need me, I'm here to help. Hopefully this is instilling comfort in the child. As far as action-based phrases you can say, would you like a squeeze or a hug? Would you want to hug a stuffy? It's okay to cry when you feel sad. It's okay to stomp your feet when you're mad. Tell them some healthy coping mechanisms if they can't think of any. Would you like to take a little break before we talk? Sometimes you need to talk to that child about maybe something they've done. Can you ask your emotion if you can be in charge so we can talk? It's not okay to blank when you feel blank. So helping them understand the not appropriate ways to react when we have emotions. I find myself, when I was teaching, I found myself saying that a lot. It's not okay to hurt people when you feel mad, but it is okay to blank. And then having them take a deep breath with you. And then they could also draw their feeling. So would you like to draw what you're feeling right now? Movement-based phrases. These are really helpful. Why don't we do 5 jumping jacks real quick? Count with me to 5. Would you like to see how stuck to the ground your feet can get? So you're having them push their feet as hard as they possibly can into the ground, and that's helping get some of that energy out. Pushing against the ground. Would you like to squeeze your fists as hard as you can? Would you like to push against this wall with me? So they're not punching the wall. They're not, doing those things. They're just, they want to see how far they can push that wall. And this again helps with that to help shift the emotion in the brain so that they can start regulating. And then would you like to stomp your feet? What to do in the heat of the moment? I get asked this a lot. And unfortunately, I didn't have a ton of answers if they're already full-blown tantrum. We haven't been able to intervene. We haven't been able to get them to regulate or listen to some of the things. It's not shifting in their brain. These are some things that I thought of that we can do in the heat of the moment. And if you have any others, feel free to add them to the chat or email me and I can add them to my handouts. But planned ignoring is a good one. So will it help if you ignore the behavior? Creating a safe space. So do they have a place that they feel comfortable going to be able to regulate that emotion? Connection, reassuring them that that emotion is okay and it's healthy. And you can even tell them why. Being mad is one of the biggest motivators there is. So like, it's okay that you're mad. Mad helps to, I guess, I don't know if kids know the word motivate, but it helps you to want to do things. Let's try doing something that's positive instead of negative. Reminding them of appropriate behavior. So remember, when we're mad, we can stomp our feet, but we can't punch the wall. Distracting is a huge one. Even if you can only distract for 1 second, then it helps that shift. Squeezes are a big thing. Both parties breathing, reminding of the process. So reminding them of the steps of regulation. Maybe you have pictures, visual pictures of kind of the steps that they go through. Change of scenery can help. Would it be helpful for them to go to a different room, to go outside, to have a different staff or whatever it might be? Would that be helpful? Waiting it out is not ideal, but sometimes we have to just wait it out and let the kid do what they do. Obviously, if they're destroying things, we're going to intervene. But if they're just having a tantrum and they just need to kind of wait it out, that's one option. Playing music is a good one. Changing the temperature. So again, that would probably come with a change of scenery, but maybe they could just go outside for just a second. That cold is going to help shift that emotion in the part of the brain to the part of the brain that we want. Smelly goods. Could they smell something? Could they taste something? So using the 5 senses is huge in the heat of the moment. Obviously, we want to keep the kids safe. So doing what we can to keep the kids safe is the most important. So now what? We model the process for children. We help them know the steps. We get them thinking about their own emotions and emotional regulation, the steps. We create a positive view around emotions and feeling them. We praise the behavior we want to see instead of focusing on the negative behavior. We praise, oh, you know what, that was so great when you were sad, you did X, Y, Z. We become the safe place and person for that child. And then just to end, why do I do this? So as we end today, my hope is that no child, provider, teacher, or parent has the experience that I did with emotions 12 years ago when I couldn't really find anything that talked a lot about the why emotions are healthy, why they're important, and the steps to regulating. I want everyone to know about the true nature of emotions, and I want you to remember that every emotion has a purpose and a benefit. Joy reminds us what matters. Sadness teaches empathy and healing. Anger incites change. Fear sharpens our focus. Even the emotions we try to squish or push away offer us some sort of insight, direction, and growth if we let them. When we stop labeling emotions as good or bad and start listening to them as messengers instead, we open ourselves to a more fulfilling life. So I hope that you can embrace all of them because each one is an important guide and every one of them belongs in our life. And that's all that I have. Do you guys have any questions? I don't even know if I know how to answer questions, but unless you just talk. But do you guys have any questions? We have about 5 minutes. Okay, well, hopefully you have learned something. Again, go look for my handouts. They should be in the lobby area of my speech. You can download them. If you have any questions or any problems with that, you can reach out to me. I don't know if my email is shared somewhere, but feel free to reach out to me.